on financing women's futures.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah, am I on? I'm on. I have to say, I have ADHD. Sadly, Lucinda, no one's given me dark chocolate. So my brain is absolutely bouncing off the Richter scale with what everyone has said today. I don't even know where to start. I've picked up so many things. And I have to thank Claire because I knew Fred, and Fred said I had to be here. And I am lucky that I get to come here and I get to learn so many things, whether it's building muscle, who knew. Fortunately, I think I've found my purpose, so I'm actually going to hopefully age well. But also, I'm Tamara. I'm the founder of Think. I am an entrepreneur like Sean. My father's an entrepreneur. He left school at 14. He said, I'm gonna do what I want in my life because I'm prepared to work hard. My mother has 6 sisters, so female empowerment always sat in my DNA. I have had businesses since I was 30 years old. I came from New Zealand and I said, when I turn 30, I'm starting a business, and I did it. I was foolish. I didn't know the fear then. I now know the fear. I've had successful business. I've had failed business. And I'm fortunate enough to be friends with Sian Sutherland. And I met her when she was my client. And I watched her go and do a plastic planet. And I thought she was mad. I thought she was absolutely mad. And in fact, we had a workshop in her house and I was like, where's the money? How are you going to make money doing this? She said, I don't care. I want to put it to good. And I watched her do this. And as we've just heard, purpose doesn't suddenly, you don't just suddenly go, I'm going to find purpose. I'd had commercially focused businesses. And I went to a meeting that Sian helped set up at JP Morgan. And the person I was meant to meet didn't turn up. And so this young woman came in. She was Forbes 30 under 30. And she said, sorry, the person's not here, but I'm here to meet you. I said, oh, great. And she said, I bet you couldn't start a business that united the finance industry behind women as investors, women as entrepreneurs. And I, as the young entrepreneur, not so young, said, I bet I can. And 6 months later, I started what was a precursor to this, which was WealthiHer. And we had 13 financial partners. Then the pandemic hit, and I had offices in London and Hong Kong. I was absolutely thrilled, and I definitely felt the fear. But my purpose happened upon me, and it has been probably, other than my son, the greatest thing in my life, and it makes me step through the fear. It makes me stand up every day. And what Think does is it says, how do we close the economic gaps that women face? How do I, actually, Ginny's on my latest accelerator for 100 female founders. How do I unite the power of industry and business? And I learned that from Sian. How do I unite and work with those businesses as our partners? And how do I help women to take control of their own personal financial prosperity, of their business prosperity? And I think if you are British, and I'm half and half, I grew up half here and half in New Zealand, but I still don't like talking about money. If we do not talk about money as women. So my purpose that has made me get up every day, fight through a pandemic, out the other side, and now do my boldest yet with 100 female founders, is the thing that has made me feel alive, and that's what Think does. Taking control, it's so emotional for women. But like Liz, like many of the speakers here, actually I do a lot of research. My background is actually consumer behavior originally. And actually the reasons that we don't take control of our financial futures or lean into that, so much of that is emotional, it's societal. It's something I always found as a young woman. I never wanted to talk about money. I never wanted to talk about my success, but I had a 50-person company. I always wanted to downplay that and book the restaurant in my husband's name. It became a thing. And in the end, I got divorced. I started to book it in mine. I started to book it in mine. But you find, women, some of the facts are scary, but some of the things are great. And I think about women, we are absolutely rising in influence. 70% of the world's wealth in the next 2 generations will be in the hands of women. Women are purposeful. 89% of women want to invest in businesses that are good for society. They want to lead businesses that are good for society, for the environment. If you look at the businesses led by women or diverse teams, they're much more sustainable, they're much more future focused. The next generation sits in women's hands. We hold our children and set our children up, whether that's to take control of their financial prosperity or it is to invest well and be good in the world. So we are an absolute rising force. Women's businesses, 150,000 businesses started each year by women, and that is a massive surge in the last 4 years. But if you look at the gaps, 1.8% of VC funding goes to female founders. It's why we create our accelerators. If you look at the investment gap, the biggest gap that women face in their lives is actually through lack of investment. It's not the pay gap. It's through lack of investing. We do it now through our pensions. But over a course of a woman's life, because we will invest in our children's education, our children's school uniform over our long-term financial future. I'm a single mother. I've done everything to put my son through, I'm even talking about moving. Cheshire or Winchester, I can't decide. I'm torn between friend groups. My ex-husband lives in Winchester. I can't almost do it. It's like, and I think, anyway, we'll have a vote later. But I've made it, everything about what I want from him, I will forgo all of my future for his and for the purpose that I do for the women that I seek to get behind. We do lack financial confidence. And what's really interesting, I research it. If you ask men and women, men will say, I know more. I know more about investing. Actually, men are much more likely to talk about it. If you actually test on financial competence, we're equal. And in fact, women make very good investors. We're not risk averse, we're risk aware. We ask questions, we consider. We look at what the business is doing. So investing, though, is an opportunity that I really want women to lean into because, in fact, we're better than we think we are. And then 2 other things. Pension gap, it's changing. It's changing for younger women, but there is a big gap between men and women in terms of their pensions. And then overall, particularly of today, and we've heard people talk about it and all of the things we've heard, women are much more likely to be burning out than men. So there's this burnout energy because of the things that we are taking on, whether it's the financial pressure, whether it's the emotional pressure. And the number one driver of female well-being is financial well-being. It is an opportunity. It's the chance to leave the job you hate, the husband you don't like and doesn't like you. It is freedom. So that financially really taking control of our financial future, I believe, is part of our financial well-being, our overall well-being. If you ask women, and it's different between men and women, what is the purpose of financial wealth? It's different. For women, security and comfort for loved ones. I'm sorry, I have to keep turning around. Freedom to choose my life, work where I want, live where I want. It's care. How do I look after those I love? And it's future comfort. And that comes last. That is last. If you ask men, and it's interesting, and I felt this for men, they'll say being able to provide for my family, being able to retire earlier. Very, very different motivations. And so if you think of for women, our finances are so inextricably linked for deeply emotional things. So we have to think about some of the emotional reasons why we do or we don't lean into our financial futures. So these are just some of the things that I've learned from much wiser experts than me and women I've heard tell stories about how I think you can take more control of your long-term financial future. Talk about money. How many of you have talked to a female friend about investing? We don't. I've done events for some of the most influential women in the city and in the financial industry, 250 of them, and the hands are more. They're slightly more, but still we say, this is not something my partner does, something my husband does. I don't do that. And if you look at longer term investing, it's the area we particularly don't do. And if you look at us versus women in Hong Kong, we do it dramatically less, taking control. But we don't talk about it. And as I said, if we're British, we don't talk about it. Even more than people in the US. I've had actually one of the women on our accelerator said to our group, introduce yourselves like a tech bro. And the introductions we were getting about business were so amazingly different from thinking about it in another way. And on one of our accelerators, someone introduced me who knows Karen Sherlock. She was on one of my accelerators many years ago. And she came on and she said, We had 50 founders, and they all pitched for money. And she was the only one who said, I'm good at making money. I like making money. I make money for my investors. And everybody else, it was the last thing they said. It was like, oh, by the way, I'm very sorry. I'm going to make some money. We don't talk about it. So if we start talking about it to ourselves, to our female friends, in business, it is, and ask each other, what do you earn? Because if we ask each other what we earn, we have a chance of getting pay parity. Having a plan. I thought this was fascinating from our research. Women over 40, we're much more likely to have a when I'm gone plan, not even a me here in my life. And as we've all heard, and certainly if we listen today, we're going to live a very long time because we're going to eat dark chocolate blueberries and build muscle mass. But we are more likely to say over 40, when I'm not here, this is the plan I'm going to have in place. Right down the bottom, sadly, is muscle. It's muscle building. And then second from the bottom is I'm going to have a financial plan. Well, again, if you want to remove financial stress, actually having a financial plan, as Sharm will say, I don't. Don't do as I do. Just do as I say. Whereas women under 40, much more likely, but again, it's very much down on the list. So having a plan and starting, our lives are long. Women are living 10% longer than men anyway. All of us in this room are going to live even longer from what we've learned. But having a plan, talking to professionals that can help us with the plan. I'm not an expert in it. And the things I have now learned about all the financial mistakes I made. I've got 3 minutes, I'm going to hurry, but if you're on maternity leave, keep your pension going because your employer has to keep contributing. If you stop it, you dramatically impact at the end of the line, but they're lessons I didn't know. So getting advice, talking to each other, and having a plan. Investing, as I said, if you look at the financial differentials between men and women, it isn't the pay gap, it isn't the career gap, it's a lack of investing. And the career gap often drives what you do invest because we change our behavior. You say, I'll stop investing in my long-term future. But if we invest, we change our financial futures dramatically. So I think that I see young women, and I see women as well. I look at the data. We're brilliant at cash ISAs. Love a cash ISA. We're on a par with men. Start to think about investing. We're like, oh, no, that's not what I do. And if you Google who are investors, all of these faces come up. They're not women. But in fact, we need to be investors. And I look at younger women, and they are investing in shares and stocks, ISAs. Start small. Talk to each other. But it will make the biggest difference. Cost of love. I've done it wrong every single way. But again, one of the more significant things in our lives is our relationships, and it changes our financial futures. I married late for love. I had property. I had a business. I divorced early, but in fact, it cost me that property. I wish I'd thought about protecting it. Only 9% of women ask for a prenup, or men. And in fact, it's just a contract that says, how will we divide it if it doesn't go well? I look at myself, I believe in love. And I don't think, even though I'm now 50 and I've hardly got anything left because I've done a purpose business and I've given half away, I don't know if I could say, what would we do if this doesn't work? Your wealth and my wealth. And I think, again, you look at couples, 86% want financial chemistry in a relationship. But we never talk about it with each other. So I think that with love, talk about it. I think love is not, I'm worried about when I'm not here, I'm going to prepare for you when I'm not here. I think also talking to our parents. I remember when I was in New Zealand, my dad is much older than my mum. He's turning 90 90 next year. And I said, Mum, we need to talk about Dad, and he knows where all the property things and everything is. And we went upstairs, and he had a Post-it note on his head saying, "Do not resuscitate." I was like, Dad, I'm not trying to kill you off. Where's the deeds to the property? But it's hard. It's emotionally hard to talk about it. But in fact, probate is a bugger. If people go into probate and they have not set things up, or you don't know where things are, or you just haven't thought about organising it in a way that people can access that information, that isn't love on either side, and it's not about getting things from people, and it's so deeply emotionally charged. But be brave and try and have conversations with those you love. Women do this last. I'm watching the time, so I'm going to go really fast. Put your oxygen mask on first, because we're all about caring for others. We're all loved ones, kids. But if we don't look after ourselves, and we're the last one on the list, in health, in finances, we cannot do the good in the world that we can do. So even though it's counterintuitive, put your oxygen mask on first. Pass down well. Been very involved with Louise Hill from Go Henry, and she's just campaigned for many, many years and had the law, worked with government, and they've just announced financial literacy on Wednesday is going into primary school curriculum. Our children's relationship with money is formed by 7. Those that are confident with money and thinking about money and investment, it changes the course of their life, whether that's about their pension, whether that's their earning potential, whether that's they don't get in cycles of debt. And if we don't talk about money and we don't talk about money to them, we are not passing this on well to enable their futures. And that's it. Thank you very much.